Hey guys, MooJK here to talk about the new upcoming holiday banner, some of the new release details, the event itself, and some bundles that we can buy right now. I think that covers it, but we'll start with the bundles. So, if you've been watching my videos for any amount of time, you know that I've complained a lot about how Gumi doesn't seem to be good at math. And the reason I say that is because usually what we have available are things like these, where um, they're these like limited packages that we can buy, but it doesn't really seem like they're that much better uh, than just straight up buying lapis, if at all. Like for instance, here you get 3,100 lapis, two tickets essentially for 24.99. But if you buy lapis directly, you would have 3,200 lapis for 19.99, and then you're basically paying like an additional $5 for two um, summit tickets. And then there's some other stuff included as well, but it's just all kind of evens out. It's not really a good deal either way. And if you, I mean, I personally much prefer 5,000 lapis 11 pulls than using a bunch of tickets, because you tend to get better stuff with the big pulls anyway. So the bundles they offer are pretty bad, but for once we're actually getting a bundle that is actually discounted, actually special. This adamantite chest of Yuletide is it's a hefty 48 bucks, but it's about twice the price of this one. But instead of 3,102 tickets, you get 10,010 tickets, and you get all these other good stuff. Lots of star quartz, magic keys, sacred crystals, all very useful. 120 energy. So this is a really nice bundle actually. If you ever were going to buy, spend money on this game, this would be the kind of bundle that you'd want to do. It is one time, but it just blows these other ones out of the water. These other ones are just kind of like, I've already explained why they're not good. Um, Another one that they are offering, I don't know if it's daily, and I already got it, is the 300 lapis one, which includes two tickets. That one's really good to get too, but it's limited time. So that's all I have to say about the bundles. We finally have some good stuff that makes sense financially. Looks like they whipped out their calculators for that one. Um, I don't mean to bash on Gumi. I've actually been very pleased with the way they've handled things recently. Um, the next event that we're getting is called the Frosty Offensive, and it's a raid event where basically there's going to be a big boss that everyone just fights over and over, and the health goes down. After his health runs out, basically he spawns again as a stronger form, and everything keeps going on and on. And there's individual prizes and rankings as well as server wide. So um, be nice to your whales, because they are the ones that are going to be ripping up this event for us and getting us more prizes. I don't know why the graphic is showing up like this, but there are some cool things that we can get um, using the event points. There's a festival hat. This isn't gonna be like the best thing ever, I think. I don't know what 10% equates to, but I'm pretty sure that we have better stuff. But a lot of people won't, and it also adds a little bit of ice damage. And all this equipment's gonna actually help out with the event as well. So this is a pretty nice cap here. There's no downside to this one. Um, the festival robe, again, pretty nice. You get some resistance. Could be useful for your healer. Um, not great outside of this event, but for the event, it's pretty nice. This snowstorm shield has high defense and spirit compared to other shields that we have. It does have ice resistance and wind resistance. Unfortunately, it does come with some downsides as well. So definitely great for this event. Maybe not so much outside of the event. And then we finally get a decent gun, a 65 element attack with fire element. Obviously not as good as Mustadio's TM, but better than anything we can buy in the shop, as long as the enemies aren't fire resistant. So this is kind of cool. One of the things that I was looking forward to was using this gun on Medius, who just got a 6-star form, but probably not going to be happening anymore, and we'll get to that in a bit. Um, where is it? Okay, so this is going to be the upcoming banner. I was actually, I mean, I knew it wasn't going to be great anyway, but it's actually a little bit more disappointing now that we've seen the 6-star forms for Sirius and Medius. They didn't improve enough, in my opinion, to really be useful. Sirius was going to find use in certain boss fights and things like that, especially if there's a boss fight that uses Dark Elemental or petrifies you or whatever. But I'm kind of giving away stuff from the future of the video, but um, we'll go through this real quick. So the base 5-star is going to be a interesting hybrid of a tank and a mage, White Knight Null. And his Trustmaster reward is actually pretty good, especially for mages. Magic plus 50, defense 50, ice resist plus 25. Obviously, it's perfect for him because he uses both of these stats, but it could work well for any mage, really. Santa Rosilia. This is basically like a super dedicated healer. Again, the Trustmaster reward is pretty good for healers. I'm not sure if it's best in slot, but it's pretty darn close at least. And the only thing is that, for my opinion, healer stats aren't really that important. Like, yeah, I put spirit on them, HP and MP, but it's not gonna be like some night and day difference when you're using Kiraja or whatever. Sirius is same Trustmaster reward as she always has. Defensive spirit plus 20% during battle. Auto regen 120 HP per turn. Actually, I'm not sure if that stat buff was always there. I know that she gets protect and shell, but if it's only 20%, I'm guessing that's going to be overridden by better buffs. And then we have Medius, who's a gunner. Looks like his attack is okay here. I don't know how much passives that includes. We'll see in a little bit. His Trustmaster reward is Growth Egg, increase experience gained by 50%. I'll be honest, and that kind of intrigues me a little bit because we do so much leveling in this game, and just having one of these could be really nice long term. It only works in battle, so it would work in the vortex of experience, for example. You get, instead of like 30k, you'd get 45k, but on a single character. But as far as like using cactuars or things like that, it doesn't kick in. So it would be nice to have, though. Not worth pulling necessarily, but let's go over to the details. So Medius was somebody that people were looking forward to because there were rumors that he might have innate dual wield. I mean, look at his picture. He's holding 2 guns. It would make sense, right? But it turns out that he doesn't. There was a Japanese video where they were talking about the upcoming updates, and one of the main Square Enix guys was talking about how he loves his character. So in my mind, I was thinking, okay, if he loves him, he's probably disappointed with the way that he's been. He's probably going to buff him up like crazy. But it doesn't look like that's going to happen. We don't have his 6-star stats here, but at 5 stars, he had pretty decent attack. His HP wasn't that great. So probably looking at pretty good attack. The graphic showed 146, but mediocre HP. Definitely not somebody you want to draw attacks with, which is what he does, which is strange. He only uses thrown weapons and guns, but you will want to have at least 1 gun on him if you use dual wield TM. So he has all these crappy gunner skills that he's always had. Draw attacks, which makes no sense because he's squishy. Multi-burst is okay. It's kind of like a Blade Blitz level because you get a 1x, but then you're also getting a critical. So, what does that work out to? Like 1.5? But not really, because even with a Blade Blitz, you would still have a chance of critical, so it'd be a little bit better in some cases. But at 6 stars, he gets more critical, 40%. So that's kind of useless if you're using things like multi-burst or burst shot. But you're probably not going to, because he's going to get better skills. He increases attack by 20% passively when equipped with a gun. That would have been good at 5 stars, honestly. A 20% attack is good for a 5 star unit, but for a 6 star unit, 20% is really, kind of subpar at this point. He does 2 to 5 physical damage to random enemies, kind of like a barrage, but it could end up being a 1.6 multiplier all the way up to a 4. On average, probably weaker than barrage. We're not sure how many shots that he takes or anything like that. It might end up being good for chaining, but on paper, it's 1.6 to 4. On average, it's worse than barrage. I think on average it'd be like 2.8. HP plus 20%, he needs that. Again, not really enough that, to make him a bona fide 6 star. And then Blazing Glory, 1.8 with ignore defense, 30% to one enemy. This is kind of his go-to single target skill, I guess. Pretty decent. I think that works out to like a 2.5 something, like close to 2.6, which is not bad, but again, doesn't really make up for his other deficiencies. It could be that this has a ton of shots to it. Again, some chaining possibilities, but on paper, it's just nothing that special. And then his limit burst is a nice AoE attack, which I think is just one hit, I think, if I remember correctly. So overall, he's very underwhelming for a 6 star unit, and unfortunately, he doesn't get dual wield. My guess is he's gonna find some use in some parties, like people who used 2 Edgars to bring up the chain and stuff like that, and there's some possibilities there. He might be like an improved Edgar, basically, but for the most part, as a standalone unit, he's very mediocre. Now, Sirius is almost exactly like her 5 star form. Pretty bad stats, as you can see here. Even at 6 star, I doubt that she's going to be very good. She's probably going to be very squishy. Her main role is obviously putting up a bunch of like bar spells and mitigating. It's not going to be to attack or anything like that. In fact, I don't think she even has a single attack skill. So it's just purely mitigation. She has all the things that she had before, which, have their uses, of course. Like she's the only one that can do Bar Faraga, Blizzaga, Tendaga, which is nice. Situational, of course. And at 6 star, she gets a bunch of special abilities, not magic. So she has auto refresh, which is nice to get MP back, MP plus 30%. Which is kind of strange because her skills don't tend to use that much MP, at least the ones that she had before. This one does use a good chunk of MP, 45, and it increases dark resistance by 50% and petrify immunity for 3 turns. So this is actually really nice if you use it in the right fight. Not something you're going to be using on a regular basis, but I can see certain bosses obviously using dark element and things like that. And then dual cast, which normally would be really good, but she can only dual cast these things down here. So, she can cover 2 elements in 1 turn or whatever, but not that great. I mean, there are ways to get her to have Cura as well, like equipping a healing staff, maybe using a certain Esper, but for the most part, yeah, it's not really as special as it sounds. So situational, very, very situational, but not somebody you'd use on a regular basis. Santa Rosilia is a pure healer, as pure a healer as we've ever seen, I think. And her main difference from the regular Rosilia is obviously more stats. 2984, that's not too bad for a mage. Very high spirit, 152. It might be the highest in the game, I'm not sure. She has innate resistance to ice, which is going to help on the event. And then she has her typical staff, weapons, and then I guess some people might have instruments or maces, not sure. So one of the coolest things about her is that she's able to counter with a lot of different things. She can cure status ailments and increase elemental resistance by 100%, but that's only to herself. So she can actually end up being pretty tanky and hard to take down if she's getting rid of status ailments and really really resistant to things, especially bosses who use magic and things like that. Um, she's increasing her limit break gauge by one each turn. I don't know how much that really is. In trust, um, she has 2 HP passives. Wow, so she really is fairly tanky for a healer. And then she can counter with heal to herself. That's 60% chance or 40% chance to mass heal to all allies. So that's really cool, actually. Um, and then she has her typical stuff. She can do all the, cure all the status ailments. And then, it's just Cura, Curaga, Curaja, Regen, Dispel, everything you want in a white mage. So she's a very, very pure white mage with some cool counter abilities. Now, her limit burst is very good. It's AoE heal and gets rid of all status ailments and increases spirit. This won't stack with focus, unfortunately, but if you don't bring focus, this is pretty nice to have. Um, so yeah, she's a very good healer. The only thing is that she doesn't have a buff skill, like she doesn't have a focus, she doesn't have embolden or cheer. So you're really losing out on a lot there unless you bring 2 healers. The thing is, if you have a Cecil and a Refia, I mean, your healing needs are pretty much met. You're not going to slot in another healer. So this is really for people who don't have a good healer yet and who have other ways of buffing themselves. Um, so yeah, good unit, but I just feel like it's a little bit overkill on healing. And then finally we have White Knight Null, who's actually a very good tank. And a mage at that, but I don't think he's necessarily worth going hardcore for. I'm sure some whales will anyway. He has really good HP, really good defense and magic, especially for a tank, of course. He's resistant to ice, which is again, and wind, which is appropriate for this event, but weak to fire, so that kind of sucks. He's able to use kind of the typical weapons that a mage might be able to. I'm trying to think here. You'd probably want to put a rod on him, obviously, but maybe like a lunar pestle for some people, because that has some magic. And then I don't know if you'd want to use any kind of, or if you'd really care about attack on this guy. And he, since he's a tank, he has really good armor selection, unlike tanks like Snow or whatever. He's going to be the second best tank in the game, in my opinion. He's going to overtake Snow in that regard. But anyway, getting ahead of myself. So he can reduce damage taken by 75% for 1 turn. Not really sure if you're going to be using that. It's an active ability and it's 12 MP. Probably useful if you know a big physical attack is coming up, but yeah, it is just kind of what it is. Attract, increased likeliness of being targeted. Okay, that's kind of like a weaker version of draw attacks, but it doesn't really matter. He won't really need it, as you'll see later. Ice magic damage and decrease ice resistance to 1 enemy. That's kind of nice as a starter ability before you go ham on your other ice abilities. HP plus 10%, which that was a little bit more, but he does get 20% here. Wind magic damage and decreased resistance, same thing as the Ice Blast. Obviously just a wind version of that. He gets passive magic and defense. Again, the 2 things that he needs the most. Now Bring It On is a really nice provoke, basically. So instead of like just increasing the chance of being targeted by 75%, he increases it by 80 and he reduces physical damage by 50%. So that makes him very tanky. It's kind of like on par with Cecil, except Cecil is passive. I guess that's a big difference there. So this guy is not as turn efficient probably. HP plus 20%, increased resistance to petrify and silence. So yeah, once he gets his passive, he can't be petrified or silenced ever. More passes here. Wow, okay. Increase defense by 30 and magic by 30 when equipped with these certain things. Um, well, I guess you can only get one of them because you have to choose whether to wear a robe for more damage, magic damage, or light armor or heavy armor for more defense. You can kind of choose whether to have a more of a tank or more of a mage. Um, nice passive here. Nice magic spell here. Ice magic 2.1 and paralyzed all enemies. So this is better than Blizzaga, which is 1.8. So 2.1, and it does has a chance to paralyze, which is really nice. And then he has all these counters here: 30%, 30%, 20%, 20%. So it's pretty cool to have somebody countering with magic, especially a tank who is already drawing attacks to himself. So um, it's kind of a similar concept with Snow, who's drawing attacks to himself, or you know basically countering physically. But this guy is countering with magic, so that's kind of cool. And then he has his typical Blizzaga Eroga, which you can use to follow up after you use Ice Blast and Gale Blast. So overall, he's a pretty good unit. Second best tank in my opinion, but I would not pull hard for this guy as a base 5-star unit. Um, Now, I am going to pull a little bit on my Halloween account because, again, the gimmick is that these are limited or exclusive units, and I like to use things that are unique. But as you can see, I already have Demon Rain. I actually have two of them, but I don't use both of them. And I think Demon Rain would stay as my main tank. And one thing that's very lacking as far as exclusive units go are mages. So I'd probably use White Knight Noel as a mage if I was lucky enough to get him. But um, I'm just gonna do some pulls for fun. Really not worth going all in for. I don't recommend this banner for a lot of people, but it's up to you. It depends on whether you like the unit design, or for whatever reason you really want Rosilia. It could be useful for some people, but overall pretty stinky banner, especially after the great one that we just had. um, by the way, before I conclude this video, um, I have to confess I did get a Noctis.